Hi, good morning to you. What a great day to be alive. And I'm excited that we're on our second session of resiliency. And I gave so much time to this training because it's so important. And I see it now and for right at this moment, tomorrow we'll be voting. And so resiliency is going to be so important to everybody. You know, we've gone through illnesses and the pandemic, and we've gone through all these different things, and life is going to keep going. So become resilient to find opportunities to grow from resiliency. It's going to be more important than at any other time in our life. So that's why we're going to spend some opportunities today and some time on actually working with this. Again, my name is Barbara Britt. I'm a motivational speaker that comes to you with action steps. I don't believe in getting you excited and getting you up about something, and then the next day when it comes down, you don't have something that you can start and do. So I'm a firm believer in that. I do consulting with businesses going in on culture change with their business, how to add value to everybody that's in your business, their strengths, their talents, their goals, their passions. When we do that, again, it's easy for people to stay resilient, to bounce back when something happens. And remember, life happens. We have things that we don't like, don't necessarily want, but they do happen to us. And then I do professional coaching with my clients, walking beside them, helping them with the direction and the journey that they want to go on with action steps and accountability. So again, thank you so much for joining me today. And again, this is on the second session on resiliency. And as usual, I'll start off with two quotes. And when you look at the YouTube channel, if you like the quotes, add some of your own, make up some of your own. If you found value in this, share it with other people. But most importantly to me is I want to hear from you. What do you think? What do you feel about things? Again, you don't have to always agree with me. It's just enough that you got on, you took the time, and I appreciate and I value you. So here's the first quote that I'd like to start with, and this is by Albert Camus, and it says, "Real generosity towards the future lies in the giving all the present." Giving everything we have to the present. Not sitting there and going back and feeling bad or negative about it or whatever. But that's how we're going to build resiliency. And this one I think is the most important to me. And you can change it to he, she, it doesn't matter. You can change it however you want. But this is by Beau Taplin, and I absolutely love it. And it says, she was unstoppable, not because she did not have failures or doubts, but because she continued on despite them. Can that be said about you? Can it be said about the people around you? I love this. She was unstoppable, not because she did not have failures. We have them, right? I've had failures. You have failures. I've got another one probably coming up any moment. But not because she didn't have failures or doubts, but because she continued on despite them. She was resilient. She got back up. She didn't just get back up to where she was. She went forward in growth. And that's why she was unstoppable. Resiliency, let's go into that. And is the courage, now I love this, the courage to come back while moving forward. You know, again, I don't want you to be knocked to the floor or hit in the face or whatever happens to you, and you just drag yourself back up and you allow, listen to what I'm saying, you allow the rest of the world to keep doing that to you. You make it okay. I get back up, and I commend you for getting back up. But I want you to get back up with some tools that you learned when you were down on that ground. And I want you to get up bigger and better than you ever were before. Because you can do it. You are resilient. We can't prevent adversity. We can't. It's going to come. In fact, I don't know that we really want to prevent it. I don't know that we would grow without it. I don't know that we would have any depth to us. But we can change adversity and can make us more resilient. So think about when you have adversity hit, what can you do to just tweak it and turn it to make it something that is an advantage to you? Just tweak it a little bit. You're going advantage out of adversity. Yes, advantage out of adversity. Think about it a little bit. I bet you can do it. In fact, I'm sure you can. When we have this, it provides us opportunities which lend us self-control. Now, I want to tell you what, when we think about having this sense of control of ourself and in our situation, what that does is it empowers us. So when we're knocked down and we get back up, think about the sense of control it gives us. Well, I had that happen before. I've had this happen before, but I got back up. I was all right with it. I could make a difference because of that. It helps us to realize that we can have an active role in our emotional, our spiritual, and our health. We have an active role in that. I can take charge. It's not about just what you're going to do to me. And I've seen this, and I've heard of it, and I've witnessed it. But in our area, we have Colonel Hubbard, and he is a speaker. He is the most awesome speaker I've ever heard in my life. And he talks about being a POW. And he talked about when all of a sudden the change happened to him, and he was no longer going to allow them to control every existence of his life. He was a POW. And all the people in that area, all the men decided and how they took control. And his story is about the strength of the human soul and what we can do when things are added to us. So spiritual health, emotional health, you are in control of that. Think about stopping your negative thought process. So let's think about how we can do that. First of all, stop that negative thought process. It's kind of like a loop in TV. It just keeps going around and around. And every time it goes around like that merry-go-round, it gets bigger. It gets more it gets more where you cannot even, sorry with that word, but it gets more to the level that you can't even comprehend getting past it. Okay? And that's one thing we want to do. So let's break that loop. That loop is not healthy for us. It's not something that we can actually come back from. So we need to think about moving forward. As soon as that negativity comes in, I will say this, I can be in bed, I can be asleep, I can be wherever. And when that negative thought comes, I'm not responsible for it coming, but I am responsible for allowing it to stay. I get up and physically move. So I'm going to tell you now, as soon as negativity comes into you, as soon as it's knocking on your door, keeping you from being resilient, I want you to get up and I want you to look it in the face. It's scary, but look it in the face because you're better than it. Move, get rid of it. Talk about what you can do, not what you can't. What happens when we allow this to happen, if we let that negativity? It's like wormholes. They just keep growing through our subconscious. That negativity does. And pretty soon it just gets in there. So I want you to think about short-circuiting that wormhole. Get up. No, that's not true. I haven't always failed at that, or I've learned to do this because of that. I want you to change the verbiage. I want you to change the thought process. I want you to short circuit that out of your subconscious. I want your conscious to go and start putting in powerful words, actions, things that can be. I want you to put that energy in there. And this is a word that I love. And it's, to this, we have to create our behavioral break. And I love that. Is that not an awesome word? Our behavioral break. And that means that I get up and I don't allow that to happen. You guys, it can happen when I'm sitting with a group of people. It can absolutely happen when I'm on a Zoom call, one of my mastermind groups. I don't care where it is, who I'm talking to, or what I'm with. I break it right then. I do not allow it. I don't go, I'll talk about that later. No, that's detrimental and you can't come back from it. So behavioral break. So think about that, just cutting that stuff right out of your process. And here's how it kind of works for you. One of the things we can do is question that catastrophe. Question it. You know, when we have a catastrophe hit, we were in our new home when Opal hit. We hadn't been there very long at all when Opal hit. And I remember we left, and when we came back, my street was decimated. It was absolutely decimated. And our house was still standing, but the debris was up to my waist. When people would open the doors, the waist and was all the way to the full door of their refrigerators and ice box, their wash machines were coming out through the front doors. They had been moved from the back of the house all the way coming up, and the debris was just unbelievable. And I know that for at least 2 hours we all walked around, we talked to each other. We didn't even have steps. I couldn't get up to my front porch. And I remember we were just immobilized. We couldn't do anything. We couldn't even hardly breathe. There was no resiliency there. And 3 vans and a station wagon pulled up with license plates from another state. And the group got out, and they really didn't say anything. And I walked up to them because we did have some water and we did have some things that we asked if we could share with them. And they said, no, thank you. This was a group of Mormons that traveled from one catastrophe to another. And what they did, they got out with their chainsaws, they had their own water, they had everything. They didn't say anything, they didn't talk, and they started picking up one piece of trash or one log or one whole side of a building, and they drug it to the street and they started the trash pile. And my neighbors and I, we looked at each other, and we started doing the same thing. And then pretty soon we had a pathway to the house. And I looked over there, and they were putting a ladder and absolutely roping it to my front porch so the ladder wouldn't fall. And that was how we got up to our house, was through a ladder. They didn't say a word, and when it came time to leave after a week with us, they just turned around and got back in their cars. So I want you to think about, what was it that catastrophe? I will tell you what, with people coming in and showing us little by little, it wasn't a catastrophe anymore. What did I learn from that? I learned this: when the next hurricane came, or when Enterprise, Alabama had a tornado, and my kids and I, my students, my leadership students, we went to Enterprise, Alabama, and we got out of the bus and we went to an elderly neighborhood. Everybody in there was really elderly, and it was just decimated. And so my kids said, well, what can we do here? I went over and got a log, and I moved it to the road, and my kids started doing the same. So did I learn from that catastrophe? Did it make me stronger and better? Did it make me walk in empathy a little bit more? Okay, that's what I learned from that catastrophe. Sometimes when we have one, we expect the worst, and we live into the worst. We want to stop that. Overcome your fear of failure. You know, we have such a great fear of failure, and when that happens, we make that failure get bigger and bigger. We're afraid. We're afraid. I mean, to the point where you're almost sick to your stomach, you're sweating. We're afraid that people are going to think poorly of us. We're ashamed, when we ought to say, hey, when we have failure, we learn. What am I going to learn from that failure? What am I going to take? What am I going to utilize? You know, and that's so important, to not let that failure come over you. Some of us treat failure like a disease, like it's something that we totally caused. As a result, when we do that, we prevent ourselves from becoming more resilient. We actually stop ourselves. So I want to tell you this: when you have failure, I want you to analyze it and go, oh, well, thank you. This is what I learned from this. Thank you. I'm a better person because of this. I've got this. I helped my neighbor get past that thought. Don't you love that ability? So when I face failure, I can build resiliency. So what's the best thing to come out of failure? I'm like that bouncy ball that I throw it from my shoulder level that goes all the way up to the ceiling in my house. So here are some questions that you can ask yourself, so it's easy to break things down. It's easier. You know, when we have steps and we break it down, we see, well, this wasn't so big. How do you eat an elephant? Well, my elephants are marshmallows, so I eat it one toe at a time, and then one finger, and then one little bite at a time. I don't try to conquer the whole elephant. So here's some questions. Will there be any positive outcomes? When I'm thinking about being resilient, are there going to be any positive outcomes? And I will tell you what, There's going to be some positive outcomes. It's hard to see that when you drive down your street and you don't see anything but total destruction, total fire, but is there some positive things that come out of there? And we have to think. And no, I'm not saying be Pollyanna and run up and down the street. I'm not saying that, but give yourself the opportunity to be resilient. Give yourself that hope that you have in there. Are you grateful for any of the opportunities from this situation? Are you grateful? Are you grateful for any opportunities in this situation? And it's hard. I've been by my friends, I've been by my neighbors crying their eyes out because everything is gone. But again, resiliency. Opening up and sharing your resiliency with others because you give them that power. In what ways are you better off than how you started? When the pandemic started, I know I shocked people and kind of probably made some mad when I said, well, what was the best thing to come out of the pandemic? And they would look at me, are you crazy? Or we're losing our business. Yes, but you know what? Our neighbors started pulling together. America started looking at our neighbors and each other to help. Then we started thinking about our human neighbors across the water from us. Is that not a bonus, a plus? Is that not something we see when we're pulling together, we're trying to make a difference? And then what did you learn from that situation, that destructive? What did you learn? It may be a never again moment. I will never allow that to happen again. Okay? So what did you learn? You learned you got to put some action steps in there or it will continue to happen. So put some action steps in there. And then the next one, the last one that's so important. How did you grow and develop as a result of the situation? How did you grow and develop? That's so vitally important. You're that important. So go back. Did I say these are easy? They're not easy. They're tough, but they're worthwhile. You can be resilient. And remember, resilient is never about picking yourself off the floor and landing right where you were so someone can knock you down again. Resilience is going a little higher, using those skills you learned, using the connections you made, and pulling together. So I hope that you've gotten something out of this. I know that just from learning and training and being able to speak to you, I have learned and I am more resilient because of that. I hope you have a great day. And if you've enjoyed this, share it with someone else.